I never thought I'd be grateful for my mother-in-law's obsession with taking photos of everything. But life has a funny way of turning the tables. Standing in my kitchen at 6 a.m., trying to get my 5-year-old son, Oliver, dressed for kindergarten while my 3-year-old daughter, Emma, played with her cereal, I couldn't help but replay yesterday's events in my mind. "Mommy, I don't want to wear pull-ups to school anymore," Oliver announced, his bottom lip quivering slightly. "Tommy said only babies wear them." My heart ached. We'd been working on potty training for months, making steady progress at our own pace. Oliver had sensory processing issues that made him extra sensitive to certain feelings and changes. Our pediatrician had assured us that taking it slow was perfectly fine, that every child develops differently. But try telling that to Margaret Wilson, my mother-in-law. "Sweetie, you're doing great," I assured Oliver, kneeling to meet his eyes. "Remember what Dr. Roberts said. Your body is learning at its own perfect speed." "But Grandma says." "Oliver, honey, go brush your teeth," I interrupted gently, not wanting to hear whatever Margaret had been filling his head with during her last visit. As he trudged off to the bathroom, I felt my phone buzz with an incoming text. It was Margaret. "Coming over for dinner tonight. We need to discuss Oliver's situation. This has gone on long enough." I showed the text to my husband, David, when he came downstairs. He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "Mom means well, Sarah. She's just worried." "Worried?" I tried to keep my voice down, as Emma was still finishing her breakfast. "She's been undermining us at every turn. Last week she told Oliver's teacher that we're neglecting his development." David winced. "I'll talk to her." But I'd heard that promise too many times before. In the 3 years since we'd moved closer to his parents, Margaret's interference had grown from occasional suggestions to constant criticism. Nothing I did was ever good enough for her precious grandson. The day dragged by at work, my stomach churning with anxiety about the upcoming dinner. When I picked up Oliver from kindergarten, his teacher, Ms. Patterson, pulled me aside. "Mrs. Wilson, your mother-in-law called again today," she said apologetically. "She wanted to know if Oliver had any accidents." I told her that's confidential information, but she was quite insistent. I closed my eyes, mortification washing over me. "I'm so sorry. Please don't give her any information about Oliver. She's not authorized to receive updates about his school day." By the time evening rolled around, I'd received 3 more texts from Margaret asking about Oliver's bathroom schedule. I was about ready to throw my phone out the window when the doorbell rang at exactly 6 p.m. Margaret swept in like a queen entering her court, designer handbag swinging from her arm. Behind her, my father-in-law, George, shuffled in quietly. He'd learned long ago to stay out of his wife's way. "Where's my precious boy?" Margaret called out, ignoring me completely as she headed straight for Oliver. "Come give Grandma a proper hug." Oliver ran to her, and I watched as she made a show of checking his pants. "Still in pull-ups, I see," she said loudly, clicking her tongue. When David was his age, he was fully trained. Must be the modern parenting methods. I bit my tongue, reminding myself that engaging would only make things worse. David emerged from his home office, greeting his parents with hugs. "Mom, Dad, thanks for coming. Sarah made lasagna." "Oh?" Margaret's eyebrows rose. "Store-bought sauce, I assume." "Actually," I started, but David cut me off. "Let's eat while it's hot," he suggested, ushering everyone toward the dining room. We'd barely gotten through the salad course when Margaret cleared her throat dramatically. "I've been doing some research," she announced, reaching for her oversized handbag. "About children who aren't properly potty trained by Oliver's age." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. David shot me a warning look, silently pleading with me to stay calm. "The statistics are quite alarming," Margaret continued, pulling out a stack of printed articles. "Developmental delays, social isolation, potential psychological damage." She paused for effect, making sure she had everyone's attention. "That's why I've taken matters into my own hands." With theatrical timing, she reached into her bag again and pulled out a large package of adult diapers, dropping them on the dinner table right next to the garlic bread. "Since you can't properly potty train my grandson," she announced, staring directly at me, "maybe these will help. They go up to adult sizes, so he can wear them as long as needed." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stopped eating, her big eyes moving between me and her grandmother. Oliver's lower lip started trembling. David sat frozen, his face pale, while George suddenly became very interested in his water glass. I felt something inside me snap. Not because of the diapers. They were just the latest in a long line of passive-aggressive stunts. No, what broke me was the look on Oliver's face. Shame, confusion, and hurt all mixed together. That's when I remembered the photos. The ones Margaret had accidentally sent to our family group chat last week before quickly deleting them. The ones I'd managed to save before they disappeared. The ones that would show everyone exactly who Margaret Wilson really was. My hand moved toward my phone, and for the first time that evening, I smiled. Oliver, Emma, why don't you two go play in the playroom for a few minutes? I kept my voice steady, not wanting them to sense the tension crackling in the air. Daddy will bring you both desserts soon. Once the children were safely out of earshot, I stood up slowly, my phone clutched in my hand. Margaret was still sitting there with that self-satisfied smirk, probably expecting me to break down crying or storm out of the room like I had so many times before. Not tonight. You know, Margaret, I said, walking over to the smart TV mounted on the dining room wall. It's interesting that you're so concerned about proper parenting. I started connecting my phone to the TV's display, especially given your own methods. Her smirk faltered slightly. What are you talking about? Last week, you accidentally shared some interesting photos in our family group chat. I continued, pulling up my saved photos folder. You deleted them pretty quickly, but not before I saw them. I thought everyone might be interested in seeing them too. Margaret's face went from smugly superior to ghost white in seconds. You wouldn't dare. The first photo appeared on the screen. Margaret at her country club's charity gala 3 weeks ago, clearly intoxicated, wearing a stained cocktail dress and yelling at a waiter. Is that why you left the fundraiser early, Mom? David asked, his voice unusually sharp. You told us you had a migraine. I swiped to the next photo. This one showed Margaret sneaking cigarettes behind her church after Sunday service, despite telling everyone she quit 20 years ago due to her deep religious convictions. George's eyebrows shot up. So that's where my cigarettes keep disappearing to. Those are private. Margaret spluttered, half rising from her chair. You have no right. Like you had no right to call Oliver's teacher or spread rumors at church about my parenting. I swiped again, revealing more photos. Or these? The next series of photos showed Margaret at various family gatherings over the past year, but now everyone could see what I'd noticed. In every single picture where she was holding Emma or Oliver, she was pinching them. Little pinches on their arms or legs, just hard enough to make them cry. Right before she'd call out, "Oh, looks like someone needs their mommy." David stood up so abruptly his chair fell backward. Mom, you've been hurting my children. Deliberately making them cry. It's not what it looks like, Margaret protested, but her face had taken on a sickly gray color. I was just adjusting their clothes. Really? Because I have videos too. I pulled up a clip from our nanny cam, showing Margaret in our living room just last month. She was alone with Oliver, waving a cookie in front of him. If you want the cookie, Margaret's voice rang out clearly through the TV speakers, you have to tell everyone that Mommy doesn't take you to the potty enough. Can you do that for Grandma? The silence in the dining room was absolute. Even the sound of the children playing down the hall seemed muted, as if the house itself were holding its breath. Turn it off, George said quietly. In 40 years of marriage, he perfected the art of staying out of conflicts, but now he was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. I've seen enough. No, I think we need to see it all. David's voice trembled with barely controlled anger. Every single photo, every video. I want to know exactly what's been happening when we weren't looking. I showed them everything, screenshots of Margaret's texts to other parents about my negligent parenting, photos of her trying to force Oliver onto the toilet while he cried, and finally, the most damning evidence of all. A video of her telling Emma, "Mommy doesn't love you as much as Grandma does." Margaret had shrunk in her chair, her earlier confidence evaporated. I was only trying to help, she whispered. Children need a firm hand. Children need love and patience. I cut her off, my voice firm but controlled. They need adults who support their development, not shame them for it. They need family members who build them up, not tear them down to feel powerful. David walked over to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. Mom, I think you should leave. But David, surely you can't. Leave Mom now, and don't come back until you've gotten professional help." His grip on my hand tightened. "We'll be discussing this with Dr. Roberts tomorrow, and if she thinks it's necessary, we'll be speaking to the authorities about your behavior." Margaret burst into tears, real ones this time, not the theatrical sobs she usually employed to get her way. George stood up slowly, his movements heavy with disappointment. "I'll make sure she gets help," he promised, helping his wife up from her chair. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry." As they walked toward the door, Margaret turned back one last time. "I'd only wanted what was best for Oliver," she said weakly. "No," I replied, meeting her eyes steadily. "You wanted control. There's a difference." After they left, David and I stood in silence for a moment, processing everything that had just happened. Then we heard Oliver's small voice from the hallway. "Mommy, can we have dessert now?" I quickly wiped my eyes, plastered on a smile, and went to join our children. We had some healing to do, but at least now we could do it without interference. As I served ice cream to Oliver and Emma, I noticed my son sitting up straighter, somehow looking lighter. "Mommy," he whispered, "does this mean Grandma won't make me feel bad about pull-ups anymore?" I hugged him close, my heart breaking and healing all at once. "No, sweetheart, never again." 3 months have passed since that night, and our family has changed in ways I never expected. The morning after the confrontation, David and I took Oliver and Emma to see Dr. Roberts, who recommended a child therapist to help them process their experiences with their grandmother. "You did the right thing," Dr. Roberts assured us during that first visit, reviewing the photos and videos we brought. "What Margaret was doing is a form of emotional abuse. Children need to feel safe and supported, especially during developmental milestones." Oliver's progress since then has been remarkable. Without the constant pressure and shame from his grandmother, he's naturally grown more confident. Last week, he proudly announced he was ready to try regular underwear at school. "You know what, Mommy?" he said while we were getting ready one morning. "I'm not scared of accidents anymore. Ms. Patterson says everybody has them sometimes, and that's okay." The change in Emma has been just as dramatic. My usually quiet 3-year-old has become more outgoing, no longer looking over her shoulder for critical comments or unexpected pinches. She sings while she plays, laughs more freely, and doesn't flinch when someone reaches out to hug her. David has been going to therapy too, working through his own complicated feelings about his mother's behavior. "I should have seen it sooner," he told me one night after the kids were asleep. "All those times she made them cry, and I just assumed they were being difficult. I let her hurt our children because I was too scared to stand up to her." "We both missed things," I replied, squeezing his hand. "But we're fixing it now. That's what matters." Margaret, true to George's word, started seeing a therapist specializing in family dynamics and controlling behaviors. We received a handwritten letter from her after her first month of treatment. "I realize now that my actions were never about Oliver's development or your parenting," she wrote. "I was trying to control everything because I felt my role as a grandmother slipping away. I was wrong, and I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused." George calls every week with updates on her progress. He's changed too, finding his voice after decades of silent compliance. He's even started coming by himself to spend time with the kids, bringing books to read or craft projects to work on together. "You know," he said during his last visit, watching Oliver and Emma build a block tower, "I've never heard them laugh like this before. I didn't realize how tense they were around their grandmother until I saw them without her here." The extended family has been surprisingly supportive. Aunt Linda, David's sister, called me the day after the dinner incident. "I always knew Mom was controlling," she admitted, "but I had no idea how bad it had gotten. Thank you for protecting my niece and nephew." Even our neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, who used to believe Margaret's rumors about my parenting, stopped by with an apology and a homemade casserole. "I should have known better than to listen to gossip," she said. "You're a wonderful mother." Last week, we had our first supervised visit with Margaret at her therapist's office. She looked smaller somehow, more human, without her usual armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup. Oliver held my hand tightly as we walked in, but he didn't hide behind me like he used to. "Hello, Oliver." "Emma," Margaret said softly, following her therapist's guidelines about giving them space. "I've missed you both very much." "Hi, Grandma," Oliver replied, his voice steady. "I'm wearing big boy underwear today." "That's wonderful," she said, and for the first time, there was no judgment in her voice, no hidden agenda. You must be very proud of yourself. The visit was short but peaceful. No critiques, no manipulation, just a grandmother learning how to love her grandchildren without trying to control them. On the drive home, Oliver asked a question that brought tears to my eyes. Mommy, is it okay that I still love Grandma even though she was mean sometimes? Of course it is, sweetheart, I answered, catching his eye in the rearview mirror. We can love people and still want them to be better. That's why Grandma's getting help, so she can learn to love you better too. Yesterday, I finally took down the package of adult diapers that had been sitting on top of our fridge since that fateful dinner, my reminder of how far we've come. Oliver watched me throw them in the trash, a thoughtful look on his face. You know what, Mommy, he said. I don't think Grandma was really worried about diapers. I think she was just scared. Scared of what, honey? Scared that you're a better mommy than she was. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. Perhaps that's what it all came down to, a grandmother's fear of being overshadowed, of becoming irrelevant, manifesting as control and cruelty. But we're healing now, all of us. It's a slow process, full of small steps forward and occasional steps back, much like potty training itself. We're learning that progress isn't always linear, that healing happens at its own pace, and that's perfectly okay. As I tuck my children into bed tonight, I'm grateful for the changes these past 3 months have brought. Our family isn't perfect, but we're stronger now, more honest, more supportive of each other's growth. And that's worth more than any perfectly timed milestone could ever be.